Are your videos feeling like a long walk to a very tiny point? I'm going to ask you to try leading with the answer first, then tell your story, then wrap it up with a quick recap. So let's do that today. If you're tired of the old cookie cutter marketing advice and want to take your personal brand to the next level with bold, actionable strategies that truly reflect you, you're in the right place. Let's untangle your marketing mayhem with Zoe, the video confidence coach, on the Unboring Your Brand podcast. Unboring Your Brand was recorded on Wadawurrung land. Yes, today is about a point that I have a tendency of rambling and not getting to. So today is going to be a thing for both you and me. It is going to be a joint effort today in the podcast episode because it is about getting to the point fast. So thank you so much to Alex who asked me the question, how do I stop rambling and get to the point faster in my videos? Thank you so much for sending that through. I really appreciate it because that spurred this episode today. And I'm going to stop rambling. We are going to be very juxtaposition in today's podcast episode. I have very clear notes here, which I will continue to follow and stuff up as I always do in my podcast episodes. But I thank you so much for joining me on this journey. When it comes to rambling and talking too much, I am definitely the queen. I am helping you build your personal brand and I have so much to talk about. I have so much passion and energy to throw at you that I just ramble. And I guess that can feel quite confronting to a lot of people. And it doesn't definitely help when I'm trying to get to point faster. I'm trying to get succinct. I'm guesting on people's podcasts, or I'm on stages, or I'm trying to put my message out there, and I find myself just yabba. And for you, that is probably also the case in your videos, in your messaging, on your website, maybe even in the posts that you put out on LinkedIn or Instagram. You're finding that you are yabbering a lot, that your videos end up being like 5 or so minutes long when you had one message to say and you just kind of keep talking. That is okay. And I'm not saying that this is a reflection of you or your personality. It just happens a lot, especially if you are nervous or you're still building up your confidence to speak on video. And even if you're not, even if you're someone like me who's been doing this for way too long, I still find myself yabbering and rambling when I don't have a clear plan, when I don't have a strategy in place. And it doesn't even have to be a very complex strategy either. I have my notes in front of me. I have a very clear beginning, middle, and end, and I ignore it some of the time, but I do my best to follow my own notes. And that is the same for you. To be able to clarify your points to a clear thing. So yes, you can put them on social media and get those views and engagements early, but you can also use it to just spruce up your website copy. You can use it to be clear in your bios, or when you are going to go out there and spread your message, to be clear and succinct so that people remember what you have to say and who you help. Because if they don't remember those two things, they aren't going to be able to repeat it. And when it comes to word of mouth, that is the most crucial type of content that you can, the best type of marketing, because it's coming from a source that they trust, especially when it comes to word of mouth. And a lot of businesses that I work with, and you are probably also included, whether you know this or not, word of mouth is 50% of their clientele, repeated clients, also referrals from your network. Your network doesn't know who you are and who you serve. They cannot refer you to the people who you serve and who you help. So in turn, this needs to be quick. And in turn, I'm going to stop rambling on the get to the point fast episode. See, the juxtaposition is already showing up. But today, I want to find your default to be context first and land the point at the end. When you are speaking, to try and move away from the method, which is currently providing context. Oh, I need to give you the information. Oh, I need you to know where I'm coming from or what this decision was. Unless it is a clear story tactic, you're giving, 30 seconds of story that brings people to your emotional state when they were at their lowest, so that they started this business because, they felt so helpless when they were dealing with their plumber. I don't know, whatever your story is. Unless that is a very clear, pure strategy, again, we come back to the strategy. You needed to plan this. And if you didn't plan this, that is okay. I want you to think of this really simple formula, which is ASR. ASR. Answer, story, recap. This can be used in many different ways, not just your video content. Even though I am the video confidence coach, I also want to help you with your personal branding and your messaging, which in turn, this is the format that can be used for that. So this is one of my default formulas that I like to use, especially in those times where I'm kind of put on the spot, or I go to a networking event and for some reason I must have a face for it, where I get picked out from the audience for some reason and told to come up on stage and just do my thing. And then I'm kind of standing there being like, I don't have the energy for this. Or I wasn't prepared for this, so I don't have anything planned. The strategy. Here is a format that I can fall back on and use. This I'm going to stumble over my words a couple of times in this episode. This ASR format allows you to flip the rambling points back onto your listener so they get value immediately, especially when they're time poor, which a lot of us in this day and age are. The aim is for your answer that is in one sentence, maximum 2 or 3. So let's go into breaking down these answer, story, recap methodology. What you can do, and do your best to try and keep it as succinct as possible. I'm going to tell you now that when you are put on the spot, or when you have to use this type of format in whatever you speak, again, your videos, your messages, your website, wherever you are, you can use that as the starting block to get you going. Because for a lot of people, it's usually just that starting part. It's the blank cursor blinking on the screen. It's hard to get started. And if you have this ASR framework, something that you can, write on a Post-it note and stick it to your laptop, or something that you maybe have on a whiteboard, or something that you have in your car or on your phone, something that you can repeat again and again. For example, my tagline that I like to use, not part of this framework, but something that I remember is, I help you shine as the obvious choice using a personalized video toolkit. Yes, that took a bit of time to put together, but it also clarifies to people what I do. I help you shine as the obvious choice. Forget the rest, you're here. And you can do that via a personalized video toolkit, because it's not just one tool. It's not just one video, it's multiple. And that's something that gets it clear to across, that gets me started whenever I'm introducing myself. I put it on the audience, I don't put it on myself. And then I can start talking about whatever the question, whatever the issue, whenever I put on the spot. I put the answer, then the story, and then the recap. So the way that this works, I highly recommend something that is a 1 sentence, 2 sentence, maximum 3. You want this to be short, sharp, something that you can repeat, also something that people can search later. And this works on all forms of podcast structure, long form, short form, essentially getting your message out there. And let's break this down. So we've got answer, which is essentially, of course, answering, saying the point first before you warm it up with a backstory. Trying to lead with dessert and then going to the main course. You want to try and give people the answer that they're seeking, especially if they are time poor, because then they'll stop. They'll stop scrolling, they'll stop looking at their phone, or in most cases, especially when I use this format, they look up. And they realize, you're actually here to help me with my problem, especially if you're at a live event. Getting those people to stop, zoning out and pull back in is a beautiful feeling. I highly recommend, especially if you are not speaking yet for what you are doing or the message that you want to provide or the people you want to help. Highly recommend public speaking. That is not what we are touching today. We're getting back to this to get to the point and to speak faster. The next part is S, which is story. So you've already started with the answer. You've already started with the gold nugget, the thing that they put their head up, or they get them really engaged. What? From there, you then give it a beginning, a middle, and an end that adds context and makes you relatable. This allows you to have a clear story. And again, this doesn't have to be a rambling story either. Like I said, 2 or 3 sentences. You can actually do a lot with a few words. I like to think of it as if you're talking to a 4th grader, or Yeah, in Australia it's year 4. 4th grader in America, yeah, around about the same time. And essentially, when you're speaking to someone, you're using clear language. You're not using any jargon. You're not using any short form or anagrams or whatever. You're clearly defining the beginning, the middle, and the end that your answer related to. And it also, bonus points if you come from a place of human emotion. No matter what, humans are emotional creatures. We may feel like we can be logical creatures, but underneath, everything's kind of driven by emotional feeling. And in that terminology, you need to be able to bring that story, you need to be able to break down that tribulation, that trial, that whatever people were experiencing to get to that answer. Again, you lead with the gold nugget, and you give them a little bit more. It helps if it's a personal story, a personal anecdote, or an experience that you had. Or if it's not, for example, in your wheelhouse or something that you personally experienced, maybe it's that of a loved one or a friend. Obviously with their permission, of course, because a lot of people don't just want their story out there when they can't tell it themselves, or they're not in the room to tell it themselves. So in that methodology, you want to be able to use a story that is coming from your either point of view or your feelings or an experience that happened to you. This is not a time to be generic. And unless you've tuned your AI tools real tight, you're going to get generic slop. So in the meantime, this is the time where you use your brain and your experience here. And with that story in mind, you want to have it in a growth moment. You want it to be not necessarily a negative experience, but something that you or your tools or your knowledge or your expertise or your experience or your message, whatever it is, it has to be a growth moment. So what I mean by growth moment is it is a mistake. It is a life lesson you learned. It is a change of your opinions or a change of mind. It is something that helps you put in context why the answer matter. Because again, answer, story. And now here we are. The recap can be really short and simple. So the R is for recap. This can be really simple. You can close it with a simple summary. So your listener, your watcher, your viewer, your audience remembers the point. The answer wasn't necessarily the point, but this is what I mean by that. When it comes to the answer, in that answer story section, your answer is the gold nugget, the glitter, the fleck that gets people's attention. The story brings that emotional gap and bridges that emotional gap so that your audience can understand where you're coming from. And the recap can be a clarification of what the point of that story was, why the answer mattered, because again, you're doing this in less than 2 or 3 sentences, and it can be really succinct and as a way to kind of bridge that gap for you. And if it's a big question, like if it's a big thing that you've been asked, or maybe something that you're not entirely prepared for, happens to me a lot, you don't need to answer in the first 2 to 3 seconds. And if it's a big question, you can take a beat. Formulate this SASR methodology. And especially with the recap, being able to hammer home the point in really clear beats allows you to get your point across clearer. And this point can be, again, the life lesson that you learned, the reason why you started your personal brand or your business, the reason you do what you do could be the recap. A smart person would be able to ascertain that from the answer and the story, but maybe you just want to recap for people who maybe aren't fully paying attention just yet. And with those answers, and in any video that you create, you want the hook, which is the first 3 to 5 seconds of a video, to be crucial. This is something where you don't want to fall over yourself in those first 3 to 5 seconds. You want to be able to grab people's attention, very much like the dessert before dinner, like that gold nugget fleck to get people on board. Because the story is going to keep people there, but you need to attract their attention first. And in those instances, using that ASR framework is going to help you do that. But this is going to take some practice. So I highly recommend giving yourself a chance to maybe sit down with half an hour or an hour, usually an hour if you're working with someone else, and work with either a staff member or maybe a family or friend, or someone who has, knowledge of what you do, but they need to tell other people what you do. So in those specific instances, being able to think about, okay, they talked about, like, when you're telling people what I do, what language do you use? And if they're like, I tell them you work with leaders, that's about it, then you might need to work. You might need to work on this, and you need to work on your answer, story, recap. Take an hour, take a time, write down ideas, messages, thoughts. Again, keep your audience in front of mind. Keep that emotional connection front of mind. This is something that you're going to need to practice. Once you have nailed it down, be up for change. I know for a fact that I continually change my my ASR, my multiple different starters. I always change this formula to suit. Again, it's always the answer, story, recap is the format, but I change depending on who I am. Maybe I've learned a few things about the language that I'm using. Maybe personal branding, the term is just too nebulous. So I need to start with something else that's clearer. Reputation. People understand what reputation is. I'll start with that as opposed to personal. There are plenty of things that you can change. But expect to practice this. Expect to be something that you use over and over again, to stop rambling, to stop over-explaining, to stop over-giving context. Because if people want an answer, they want it quick, and they want it fast. I know that is the same thing that I've just repeated. In those instances, you want to be able to have the answer, again, the good stuff up first, the story that helps them sit tight, and the recap reminds them of what the whole point of your conversation was. This can be expanded to a 2-hour podcast. This can be shortened to a nice, short, sharp 30-second video. Whatever it is, it doesn't entirely matter what the format is. I know that sounds a bit strange coming from me, but feel free to check out my episode regarding that the final format doesn't matter. I can't remember what the exact title is. Feel free to check out the show notes for that. But in that instance, it doesn't really matter what the end product is, as long as you know what that answer, story, recap is. This is a format that you can use to extend over wide periods or short periods, whatever you need. This is a format that you can constantly fall back on in those times where you're unsure of what to say. You know who you serve. You know your message. You know what services you provide to help them with their problem. Bridge those together. Answer, story, recap. Start with the answer, not the backstory, not the context. I do not give a shit, and your audience doesn't give a shit. Keep your answers to 1 to 3 sentences. Keep it quick. Keep it nice, so you can remember it and you can repeat it. You are going to get sick of this. Do not worry. You are definitely going to get sick of this. But the people that you meet aren't. You're going to tell a personal, emotional story that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And if you can't think of an emotional story, talk to someone else. Talk to a real-life human who can help you with that. Understand, be able to put in words those emotional feelings. And if you need to add some embellishments, sure, go ahead. You are not a generic AI. And at that end, and in that story, making sure to cover a growth moment so it feels human and memorable. Making sure that you cover those particular areas about was it a mistake? Was it a life lesson? What did you learn? Did your opinion change? What happened? Tell me. And make sure to finish with a recap so the point of your ASR sticks. And an opener can be repurposed for everything that you do and say. This ASR technique can be used whenever you need to speak your message. You can change it up depending on how you feel. And you can have one, like I said, this format can be used for anything and everything. But if you do have a couple of, ASR formats in your back pocket, so in the event that you are brought up on stage, or that you're on a podcast, or if you're in those situations where you need to talk to someone, maybe you're in a pitch meeting with a client and they say something and you come out with this ASR and they're left there going, yes, I will hire you. Yes, you are the right person for the job. Whatever it is, this format can be used for it, but you're going to need to practice it. And you've got this. So, as you can imagine, the related episodes for this related to this episode to line up in your podcast player next is episode 42, Prioritizing Strategy Over Format. That was the episode that I was mentioning. Wait, no, the next one is the one I was mentioning. So 42 was about prioritizing your strategy over format, because it doesn't entirely, I have the philosophy that the end product doesn't entirely matter. As long as it gets to your audience, that's what matters. But when it comes to the format it comes in, not entirely as important as the message and the strategy behind that, and making sure that strategy is repeated a crap ton. But the episode that I was talking about before is episode 74, Don't Force the Final Format. So this episode reinforces the stories before formats so that your ASR format beats the first come and the platform comes second, because your message is more important than if it's a TikTok video or a live stream. Your message is more important than, oh, does this go on a brochure or a billboard? Your message is more important than just, oh, does it go on a video that I post on my Instagram, or should it go on my Instagram stories? Your message is more important than where it ends up. You need to repeat it again and again and again, which I'm aware can get boring, but it's not going to be boring to the people you help and serve. And in turn, your simple action, as you can probably guess from today's episode, is making your own SAR mini-script. Ultimately, you want to be able to have some of these in your back pocket, in your memory, or maybe something that you can use again and again to help you with your next Q&A video that is like 10 minutes long, or something that, have in your back pocket to create a series of shorter videos to go on social media and your website. Again, like I said, format doesn't matter here. We need to focus on your answer, one sentence, your story, which is around about 3 beats, a start, middle, and an end, with that emotional hook and that growth moment in the middle of it. You can start with the beginning with that growth moment, maybe in the middle, whatever you need. And then finishing it up with one sentence that is your recap. Once you've practiced this a couple of times, hit record. You don't need to go any more than 2 times, because once you've, worked over those kinks, once you've worked over those stumbles, stop, take a breath, record again. That second one's going to be better. That's probably the second one that you're going to use. If you find yourself recording again and again and again, take a break, take a pause. It is not the right time for you. It is not what you need. Take a break, come back and record again. However you're going to be using this format, I wish you all the best. And for those who have joined us until the end of the episode, make sure to check out our disco chats, where we do a little bit of dancing, but I also answer all your personal branding and video marketing questions, and also help you on the next steps of your journey to be able to achieve whatever you're trying to achieve. And if you're feeling generous, please do hit subscribe and follow so you don't miss the next one, which will be next week, 6 a.m. Wednesday, Australian time. And then it is Tuesday night for everyone else in the world, because Australia comes first. And if you're feeling oh so generous, please do give us 5 stars and a quick rating or review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, because I'd love to know what you think. Cheers, and I'll see you next week. Bye. Thank you for listening or watching Unboring Your Brand. You can find detailed show notes with tools, offers, and episode transcriptions. Just click the first link in the description or go to vcc.training/podcast. Get involved and ask me anything about personal branding, video strategy, or just a friendly small business chat via my email, g'day@vcc.training. That is gday@vcc.training. The Video Confidence Coach would like to acknowledge and pay my respects to the Wadawurrung people of the Kulin Nation, the traditional custodians of the land on which I record my podcast. I pay my respects to their elders past and present. I stand with the traditional custodians of these lands in working towards a more equal future. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. Look forward to me chatting at you next week, superstars.